My stepson's innocent request at bedtime exposed a secret. My husband hid for years. It's strange how life can feel completely normal, right, until the moment it doesn't. That night felt like any other. I had just come out of a warm shower, hair wrapped in a towel, and the faint smell of lavender lotion lingering in the air. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the heater kicking on. My husband was working late again, as usual. Jamie, my 10-year-old stepson, had been unusually quiet during dinner. He barely touched the chicken Alfredo I made, and he kept glancing at me like he wanted to say something but couldn't quite figure out how. I was halfway down the hallway, heading to my room, when I heard his voice, soft, almost nervous. "Can you tuck me in tonight?" he asked, standing in his doorway in dinosaur pajamas that were a little too small. It struck me as odd. Jamie had never asked me to do that before. He was always so self-reliant, too mature for his age in ways that sometimes made my heart ache. I paused. Something about the way he asked made my chest tighten. His eyes were pleading, like this small moment meant more to him than I could understand. And without really thinking, I nodded. "Of course," I said. I couldn't have known that stepping into that room would be like stepping into a different reality. A reality where nothing I believed about my family was true anymore. That night didn't just change things, it shattered them. Jamie's room was dimly lit, with that soft golden glow from the old Pixar-themed nightlight he refused to part with, even though he tried to act like he'd outgrown it. As I stepped inside, I noticed his backpack tossed by the door, one strap broken like it had been yanked too hard. The air smelled like a mix of strawberry shampoo and something else, something stale, like unspoken words clinging to the walls. He climbed into bed slowly, curling himself under the covers like he was trying to hide from the world. I sat on the edge of the mattress, my hand smoothing the blanket over him, and I swear, his little body flinched at my touch. Just for a second, a twitch, barely noticeable, but I saw it. "Jamie?" I asked, keeping my voice low, careful, like I was trying not to scare off a wild animal. "Is everything okay?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes stared at the ceiling, lips slightly parted like he was choosing his next breath carefully. Then, after a long pause, he whispered, "Do you ever keep secrets from people you love?" My heart stilled. It wasn't just the question, it was the way he said it. Like someone who had been carrying a secret so heavy, it had bent his spine. I smiled gently, trying to play it cool, but inside, alarm bells were going off. "Sometimes," I said slowly, "but only if I think it'll protect them." His eyes flicked to mine, wet and wide. And then he said something that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. "Is that why Daddy tells me not to talk about certain things when you're around?" Time stopped. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. My mind tried to grab onto the words Jamie had just said, but they slid through my thoughts like oil, slippery and wrong. "Daddy tells me not to talk about certain things when you're around." Every syllable echoed in my skull like a scream trapped underwater. I swallowed hard, careful not to show how fast my heart was racing. I felt the instinct to protect, to comfort, but also a cold, creeping horror rising up my spine. "What kind of things, baby?" I asked, my voice so calm it scared even me. He looked away, his little fingers gripping the edge of the blanket like a lifeline. "I don't know," he mumbled. "Just stuff. He says I get confused, that you wouldn't understand." There was something so mechanical in the way he said it, like he'd practiced it, like those weren't his words, but someone else's rehearsed script planted in his tiny mouth. I wanted to scream, to shake someone, but I couldn't. I was frozen in place, staring at this boy who had never asked to be the keeper of such heavy silence. I reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind his ear. "Jamie," I said carefully, "has your dad ever asked you to keep secrets before? Maybe ones that made you feel weird or scared?" He hesitated, then nodded, just once. The air left my lungs.
That single nod from Jamie hit me harder than any punch ever could. I sat there stunned, watching his small chest rise and fall beneath the covers like he was trying to breathe through cement. My brain was screaming 1,000 things at once, but my mouth was dry. My hands started to shake, so I tucked them under my thighs to hide it. Jamie, what kind of secrets? I asked again, this time almost whispering. I need you to be honest with me, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. I promise. He turned his face toward the wall, and for a second, I thought he wasn't going to say anything else. But then so quietly I had to lean in to hear it, he murmured. Sometimes he comes into my room when he thinks I'm asleep, and he just sits there, or touches my hair, or my back. Every molecule in my body turned to ice. I had to swallow the bile that rose in my throat. I didn't want to scare him, didn't want him to shut down, but my insides were clawing to break loose. Has he ever touched you anywhere that made you uncomfortable? I asked, each word tearing me open as it left my lips. Jamie's silence said more than any scream ever could. He didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He just stayed still. His little fingers curled into the sheets like he was trying to anchor himself somewhere far, far away. And that's when I realized he wasn't just telling me a secret. He was handing me a grenade. And I knew in that moment I would burn the whole damn house down to protect him if I had to. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling while the silence of the house pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. My husband came home after midnight, slipped into bed beside me like nothing was wrong, kissed my shoulder and whispered, "Love you." I felt my skin crawl. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just kept replaying Jamie's voice in my head. He comes in when I'm asleep. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a fist of rage and terror all at once. Every breath I took burned. The next morning, I got Jamie ready for school like everything was normal. I packed his lunch. I tied his shoes. I smiled and I told him to have a good day. But inside I was already planning everything. As soon as the door closed behind him, I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and started digging. Messages, photos, voicemails, anything. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but what I found broke me. There, hidden in a folder deep in the cloud backup of his old phone, were videos. Short clips, some just a few seconds long. Jamie asleep in bed. My husband standing over him, just watching, breathing. In one clip, he reaches down and brushes the blanket back. My hands went cold. That was it. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. I stopped hoping I was wrong. I stopped pretending this family was real. And I started preparing for war. I closed the laptop with trembling hands, but the images I saw wouldn't leave me. They burned behind my eyelids like acid. I couldn't cry. Not yet. My body was locked, frozen between fight and flight, but my mind was screaming. Every logical part of me was trying to scream, "Call the police." But another voice, softer, more terrified, whispered, "What if they don't believe you? Because that's how it goes, right? He's the charming one, the good husband, the doting father. He volunteers at school, mows the neighbors' lawns. Who would believe me? Who would believe Jamie? He's just a kid. And me? A stepmom. Not even blood." That's when the real fear hit me. Not fear for myself, but for Jamie. If I moved too soon, if I went to the wrong person, if I messed this up even slightly, he might get taken away. Or worse, sent back to him. I felt like I was holding a glass heart in my hands, already cracked. And if I squeezed too hard, it would shatter. If I held on too loosely, it would slip and break anyway. I pulled my phone from the table and opened a new email draft. I addressed it to my sister, the only person I trusted. Subject line: "If something happens to me." Inside I wrote, "I need you to read this and keep it safe. Don't say anything. Don't reply. Just hold on to it. If anything ever happens to me, give this to the police. And protect Jamie. Please." Then I attached the folder. All the videos. The screenshots. My notes. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type my own password to encrypt the file. I whispered it under my breath 3 times, committing it to memory. Then I hit send. The moment I did, I felt something inside me settle. Not peace. Not yet. But resolve. He came into the room a minute later, rubbing his neck like he'd just finished a long day at work. "You okay, babe?" he asked. "You've been quiet tonight." I looked at him. really looked at him. The man I married. The man I thought I knew. The man who was supposed to protect us. And all I could think was, how long has this been going on? How long had I been sleeping next to the devil? I nodded slowly. I'm just tired, I said. My voice didn't shake, but my soul was on fire. The next morning I woke up before the sun. I didn't sleep. I just laid there with my eyes open pretending, while his arm was still draped over my waist like a leash. When he finally got up to shower, I moved like I was defusing a bomb. Quiet. Calculated. Every sound in the house felt louder than usual. The creak of the floor, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the distant splash of water behind the bathroom door. I grabbed my bag stuffed in the backup drive, my wallet, birth certificates, school records, anything Jamie and I would need if we had to run, because that was Plan B. Plan A was justice. But I wasn't dumb. I knew monsters like him didn't just go down with words. They twisted stories. They cried on cue. They made you look crazy. So I needed proof, solid, undeniable public proof. That's when I called my friend Rachel. She worked with a private investigator, someone she once hired during her custody battle. I gave her no details over the phone. Just said, I need someone who can dig quietly. I'll pay whatever it takes. She hesitated. Are you okay? No, I said. But I will be. I looked over at Jamie's bedroom door. I couldn't tell him anything yet. He was just a little boy. Too gentle, too trusting. But I did go in and kiss his forehead. I held his face in my hands a little longer than usual and whispered, You're safe now. I promise. He blinked up at me, still half asleep. Love you, he mumbled. And I nearly broke. But I didn't, because I couldn't afford to. Not yet. That night, I set up a hidden camera in Jamie's room. Not because I wanted to see it, but because I needed everyone else to. This time it happened on a Tuesday night. Jamie had gone to bed early, tired from soccer practice. I tucked him in like always, read him a story, and made sure the camera was recording, hidden, silent, aimed at the door. I waited in the dark. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The hallway light clicked off around 1:12 a.m. Then I heard the soft creak of floorboards. Bare footsteps. Slow. Intentional. I felt my heart crawl up my throat as his shadow moved down the hallway and stopped at Jamie's door. My breath caught when I saw the handle twist. Click. He entered. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I waited. 32 seconds later I had enough. I burst through the door like fire. Lights on. Phone in hand. Camera still rolling. What the hell are you doing? I said, voice calm but full of thunder. He froze. He looked at me like a man who'd been caught naked in front of a firing squad. I heard a noise, he stammered, stepping away from the bed. You sure that's all you were doing? I held the phone up, screen lit, video playing. You forgot you weren't alone tonight. He lunged. Not at Jamie, at me. But I was ready. Rachel's PI had been waiting outside in a parked car. I'd sent him the live feed 10 minutes earlier. Police were already en route. As my husband grabbed my wrist, there was a crash at the front door, then shouting, footsteps, and finally justice. They dragged him out in cuffs. He kept screaming it was all a mistake. That I was crazy. That he loved Jamie. But the camera didn't lie. And neither did Jamie, when he finally looked at the officers and said quietly, That's him. That's who comes in at night. I hugged Jamie tighter than I ever had in my life. He asked me if we were safe now. I told him, yes, we are. Forever. And for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it.